Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I came across a new article from Daily Hodl titled Bitcoin, Tesla, and Elon Musk. Bubbles happen around things that change the world, says Mike Novogratz. Now, Mike Novogratz is just one of those kooky billionaires. I think there's something to this whole cryptocurrency thing. No, I'm kidding. I don't think he's kooky at all. Perhaps that's how he and the likes of him and perhaps Tim Draper are perceived by traditional media, at least some portions of it. But he sees that there absolutely is something to this. There's tremendous staying power, and it's not going away. And he understands that the reason that people are acting so crazy from a speculative perspective, as far as crypto is concerned, has to do with the fact that there is there's something major about this asset class that people can, maybe they can't quite put their finger on what specifically. They've got some ideas about things, the way things might pan out, but they know there's something, and that's when you get people acting like this with their money, emotionally buying and selling tremendously, and you saw the same types of human emotions play out during the dot-com boom and bust, and so there's something to this. And as an XRP holder, and with this being an XRP-centric channel, I'm always thinking about it from that angle. And XRP is absolutely part of this. And right now, fine, XRP is following on the coattails of Bitcoin's price action, if you want to say that. Because XRP, like every other altcoin on the planet, does follow Bitcoin, but that's because the asset class is very young right now. It's in its nascency, but eventually people will parse out the differences between coins. And I think that we haven't seen the biggest bubbles that are going to come in this asset class because, as it turns out, figuring out what cryptocurrencies really mean to the world, it's taken a lot longer for people to get a grasp of that than maybe some would have guessed. Because, look, we're over a decade in, and there's still almost no utility, but even with that being the case, we can see that there is genuine utility thanks to cryptocurrency, specifically XRP. So before going any further, if you would please delicately tap that like button, and if you are a fan of Ripple and XRP, and you agree that bubbles happen around things that can change the world, and Ponzi schemes sometimes, go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel, the bestest of all channels on the YouTubes. So let's go ahead and jump in. Galaxy Digital CEO Mike Novogratz is comparing the leading cryptocurrency Bitcoin to the electric car unicorn Tesla. Now, he also founded Galaxy Digital, which I always thought it was basically just a hedge fund, and I still think they are. But let me go to their main page, actually, because they have they describe themselves as a bank, I believe, if I could find that. Why isn't this going anywhere? I'm clicking on it. It's not doing stuff. Oh, there we go. Okay, now it just load. Galaxy Digital is a diversified merchant bank dedicated to the digital assets and blockchain technology industry. So that's what they call themselves. It's interesting that they call themselves a merchant bank. Okay, whatever. But then if you go to the About section right here, under Mission, it writes, our mission is to institutionalize the space and promote the growth and advancement of the underlying ecosystem and technology behind digital assets and blockchain. And they also cite on this on their website here that they're really trying to be a bridge for institutional adoption right here. So that's all coming. But in a new interview with Bloomberg, the former Goldman Sachs partner and hedge fund manager says both represent revolutionary technologies that can change the world, and it's not surprising to see speculative bubbles forming around them. Tesla's stock has soared since the start of the new year, climbing from $430 to $650. Its 51% year-to-date gain trumps Bitcoin, which has surged from 7,202 to 9,404 over the same period, up 30%. Novogratz admits that he made a mistake in shorting Tesla, and here's a quote. I cut against my own rule when I said don't short Elon Musk, and Tesla feels like Bitcoin. It's not a fundamental story anymore, so any bit of good news is going to shoot it up. Novogratz says he's waiting for a pullback to get out of his short position. Although he's a fan of Tesla, he believes the stock will correct since assets, quote, just don't go to the moon. Moon Lambo disagree. No, I'm kidding. When asked to clarify his Tesla-Bitcoin comparison, Novogratz explains, quote, there's a Tesla bubble going on. There's no doubt about this is a bubble. Bubbles happen around things that normally change the world. Tesla cars are amazing. Elon Musk has all kinds of technologies he's delivering. And so the story is so powerful, it sucks everybody in. And so essentially, there's some excitement around it. People don't know for sure where it's going. And FOMO. So FOMO kicks off right there. All right. However, the electric car company's current valuation may not be justified, according to Novogratz, who also concedes that the stock price can continue to surge due to Tesla's world-changing narrative fueling the bubble. So he's talking about the difference between genuine fundamentals versus speculative action from perhaps a technical analysis point of view. As for gold and Bitcoin, Novogratz is on board with both. And he said, quote, "I still love gold. I still love Bitcoin because we've got too much liquidity around and we're debasing our currency over time. Bitcoin had its bubble in 2017 and now it's become an asset. It's a weapon in people's portfolios. It is a version of gold. We call it digital gold, and we're putting in plumbing all around the system to allow more and more people to buy it so it trades much, much better." And see, here's where I'd tweak. If it were me, I'd tweak what he's saying, because conceptually I think that he's on the right track. But saying Bitcoin makes it too narrow, because those cryptocurrencies that have genuine utility, those are the cryptocurrencies that will have staying power. And part of part of the use as a result of the recognition of such utility is that some of these cryptocurrencies, like XRP, I believe, and this is not financial advice, it's just something that I believe they will have value as an actual store of value. You could call XRP digital gold in that sense. I'd be fine if you want to make that type of comparison. That's perfectly reasonable. But again, it's all down to utility, and so that's why when he says specifically Bitcoin, well, first of all, that'd be too narrow even if Bitcoin had utility. But on top of that, Bitcoin doesn't have utility other than just the speculative bubble. So it's more like there's something to the asset class, but as far as Bitcoin's staying power, maybe it will have perpetual staying power, but it might not, because if it doesn't end up doing something, why would people continue to put their money into it when there are other cryptocurrencies that people can have confidence will have staying power because businesses need them, for example? Think about that. And that's what we're seeing with XRP, but it's just such a young asset class that people haven't figured this all out. How could you convince somebody, because the average person knows almost nothing, how could you convince them that Bitcoin does or does not is not going to have staying power? It's a very long conversation, and the average person just doesn't have time. And so this is going to be a very long process, much longer than I think most would have guessed here. But as far as XRP, look, I think absolutely there's going to be bubbles around us. And look, I still believe that if fundamentals don't change for other cryptos in terms of them actually being adopted based on utility, then the only outcome that makes sense is that ultimately XRP would become number one in terms of market cap. It's supplanting Bitcoin. I don't know how long that would take, and also there's a lot of moving parts here, and so I'm not saying definitively, not necessarily that will happen, but if there is no additional utility from other coins, I think that inevitably it must occur, because that's my entire investment thesis. Utility matters, right? And so, as a result, I think that there could be absolutely bubbles around XRP in the future, with XRP leading the market. And maybe the rest of the crypto asset class, if to the extent it would still be around, would follow its price action. But again, XRP is genuinely transformative from a global perspective, the way money moves around the planet. And there are literally multiple use cases that we're seeing adopted today. And so, just the beginning. This is going to be a crazy ride. So I'll tell you what, if you are here right now listening to this video, you are on the cutting edge. Not because it's the Moon Lambo channel, which of course, again, is the best channel on YouTube. We all recognize that. I know you know that too. But you're on the cutting edge because almost no humans on the planet know what XRP is and what is happening right now. So I think it's a cool thing. I feel so fortunate to have stumbled across this when I did. I really do. I had no idea when I started researching crypto in late 2017 what I was getting myself into, but I could not be more happy about it. Take a look at this tweet from Maddie Greenspan. I wanted to point you in a direction here. I think you guys will like this. All right, so this Cointelegraph interview just blew my brain. It's from 2 weeks ago and talks all about Bitcoin's status as a risk asset or safe haven. It's with Professor at Cam Harvey and Duke Yu, the guy who first used inverted yield curves to predict markets. And the reason that I wanted to cite this, I think it had something to do with part of this article. If I go for it. Yeah, let me read. So here's the rest of the quote from Mike Novogratz. It doesn't trade. He's talking about Bitcoin here. It doesn't trade like we're in a speculative bubble. It's grinding higher. It jumps a little. It recovers. I'm thrilled the way it's trading this year. If it hadn't rallied during Iran, if it hadn't rallied during the virus, I'd have been nervous, but it did. So I'm gaining confidence in the Bitcoin position. And so what we're talking about here is this concept of, is Bitcoin a safe haven for your money? The big question being, of course, if that wasn't clear enough, when there are tumultuous times around the world as maybe stocks plummet as a result of just geopolitical fears or the coronavirus, whatever it may be, where does money flow to ultimately? Is Bitcoin that safe haven? Does it go up while everything else goes down when there's these tumultuous times? And so that's what Mike Novogratz was citing here. He's talking about Iran, he's talking about the coronavirus, and he said if it hadn't moved the way it had, that he'd have been nervous. Now, it's fascinating. If you want to go off of incidents, because that's anecdotal, okay? And nothing against Mike Novogratz for citing it. I think that there's a place for anecdotal occurrences, usually as supplementary to the additional facts, though. So nothing against him, but I prefer to use anecdotes in addition to a narrative that's driven based off of larger data points, if that makes sense. And so there is this. Is Bitcoin a safe haven for your money? And so this guy, Cam Harvey from Duke U. This video, it's again from Cointelegraph. It goes on for about a half hour. I watched this whenever it came out. I don't know, probably a better part of a week or so ago. I can't remember if I mentioned it on the channel. Not XRP related at all, but absolutely worth a watch. And he points out that there's no actual firm evidence that Bitcoin qualifies as a safe haven. And he's not outright denying. He's not saying that it's possible, but he goes on to talk about, this isn't going to do it justice. There's so much to say on the topic, which I'm not going to get into in this video. But he goes on to talk about how basically so not only are there not data points to support that, but there are a lot of people out there that are really just pushing that narrative. But a lot of it has to do with, I would say, I don't know. If you think about the types that entered the world of crypto and Bitcoin the better part of a decade ago, ideologically driven, he thinks that there's some of that. I hope I'm representing him okay by stating something like that. But it's more so just the concept of people moving by what's in their gut rather than what the data is. And he pulls out the data and he says there really isn't an indication, but he's not denying that it's possible that Bitcoin or crypto as a whole could ultimately be a safe haven for money. Again, there's just not the evidence to support that yet. So for me, I'm all about having opinions based on data, not ideology or what I want to be true in the world. So to me, I'm always just straight up looking for the truth. So I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and link this below if you want to check this out. Again, it's about a half hour. He also goes on to talk about, as Matty Greenspan here cited, inverted yield curves. And I wasn't really familiar with them prior to watching this, so it's not something that I have cemented in my brain, so I can't cite back specifically what they are. I could probably do with watching the video another once or twice, frankly, just for repetition to really get it down. But he believes that we're in store for a recession in the United States here rather soon, probably. That's what the data indicates, probably within the next year and a half, something along those lines. Now, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be catastrophic, but if the past is any indication of future events, then yes. Because the last time the metric that he tracked, the last 7 times the metric that he tracked did what it's doing now, it resulted in recession. So, and he's talking about, again, inverted yield curves there. So I can't do it justice because, like I said, I only watched it once, and it was my first instance in coming across this, and I don't want to pretend like I have it just down pat because I watched a video once. But it's worth knowing, worth watching. But anyway, I will wrap it up there. Feel free to drop a comment below. I always love to hear what you all think. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything, because if anything that I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!